You literally start the presentation by saying I'm sorry in advance. It's never a great start. You're excited for the man, I think was. Yeah, man.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
But how do I even make it? I don't even know you.
You just press the. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is it recording?
It's been
Right.
5 seconds.
This is my FMP presentation. My ideas. So the first idea I had was basically it was like to almost emulate. It's called a Saturday Social on Sky. So it's basically you have like 2 or 3 fans in a room, maybe like a board, like like a tier list almost of like different players. It's basically all about fan discussion and things like that. But the reason I didn't really go with it because the set would have been quite difficult to set up. Although you'll see when I actually come up with my final idea, it does draw a bit of inspiration from this. Yeah, it just sort of focuses on different aspects of football. It's all about fan discussion, and I don't know if I could have really been able to emulate it in a sort of way I would have wanted to. The next is the Raw Football link, by the way. Football film. I didn't really. I come up with the idea. I didn't really like the idea. So I've made a lot of films during like the whole course and the different units, and I'm not massive on filmmaking, so it just didn't really take my fancy. But it was going to be about like mental health and football. I was going to try and work that into together, but I decided to go against it. And then the idea I actually went with is a football podcast. So it's basically going to be. So I was still in like the early phases of it, but as it stands, I think I'm going to record it because I think the set design, there'll be a bit more into it, a bit more detail that I can go with. So I think I'm going to actually have it on camera and record it. I'm only planning on doing 1 or 2 episodes because I just think it'll be just almost like a taster. The equipment I'll need to make sure I've got like obviously microphone, everything you need for the podcast. And I'll need a couple of people from in here to help me that like football. And yeah, I think it'll be quite a good concept that I'm quite passionate about and I can actually work towards and work well. So I've already kind of explained why I selected idea 3. It's the more straightforward of the 3. The different ideas. That's Saturday Social in the bottom. So you see they've got like the kind of the tier list going on with the 2 fans either side. You've got your 2 presenters. They discuss it with the fans. So that's the sort of thing. I still think I'm going to have, if it's being filmed, I might have that sort of something like that. But then obviously if it's going to be a podcast, it'd be about how would you translate that into for audio listeners. So if people are just listening to it without the footage, how are you going to be able to translate that? Obviously you'd have to like tell them it might not be as clear. But I think I could make it work. Copyright and ethical issues. I just need to make sure basically one that I'm steering clear enough of the inspiration and the ideas that I have been looking at. I don't want to plagiarize basically, and as well I need to make sure that when I'm talking about the Premier League, when I'm talking about the Bundesliga, different leagues across the world, and just things that are football in general, like football rights are expensive, like Sky and things, they're really protective over the footage. So I need to make sure that it's like that I'm clear on everything. I don't think I'd be showing football footage because if it's a podcast, it wouldn't translate. But even audio and stuff, they can be a bit thingy about. So I just need to make sure that I'm not infringing on any copyright. The target audience is going to be around 16 to 23, like young adults almost. Because as well, I want the podcast to be quite raw and authentic. So if there is swearing, I wouldn't necessarily want to bleep it out. Obviously, if it's bad, if it keeps going on and on, it's loads, I might have to. But that's why I'd go with 16 to 23 because I don't want to make. Obviously, you don't want your younger audience being like subjected to swearing, but I want it to be quite natural. Basically, it's going to focus on like fan content. So it's going to be more like fans just having. It's basically just going to be fans having a discussion about football on camera and with a microphone in front of them. I've kind of already given you my synopsis of it. My inspirations. So the different podcasts that I've looked at. So I looked at 3 different ones. So you've got the Stick to Football podcast, which is quite interesting because there's still discussion about football, but they do have discussions about other things like I mean, I was looking during my research the other day. They've had like NFL players on. They've had people that aren't even necessarily related to football and surrounded them with people that are into football, and they will discuss football, but they'll discuss other issues and things like that. I think that can be quite a good concept that I might look to do. Maybe like as my starter question, talk about something completely irrelevant, something like what Tesco meal deal do you have, or something that just like almost brings your audience, brings you like your guests and makes them feel comfortable. Because I want to have that. I want it to be come across as a comfortable football conversation. Then you've got the rest is football. It's an interesting podcast. It's got obviously 3 ex-players, but the issue would be with that is they tend to interview a lot of players, and it focuses on mainly those 3 talking about their previous footballing experiences. And obviously, I don't have access to any ex-players, so it wouldn't really be something that I could really tap into. And then this one, the That's Football podcast by Mark Goldbridge. That's interesting because that's 2 fans just discussing football. Something that's quite interesting about that as well that I picked up on is that they tend to have quite a lot of viral clips. So sometimes like Goldbridge will say something that he knows is going to be contradictory, like a bit out there. And that's quite interesting that they'll put that clip up on TikTok and it'll get reposted and liked and favorited quite quickly. So it's sort of it's almost like a bit of viral marketing, but not quite, if you get what I mean. Scheduling my Wix site. I've started my Wix site. It's still an early development stage. I've not really added much to it yet. Scheduling, I just need to make sure I keep on top of everything. Make sure my pre-production, my paperwork's all done for when it's due on Teams. I'm going to make a lot of reference to the sheet that's available on Teams. Yeah, I just need to make sure I keep on top of everything. I'm sticking on my schedule. What will I need? It'll basically be. I'm not fully sure where I'm going to shoot it yet because obviously I want this comfortable sort of like aesthetic going on. So whether or not it's going to be on a couch, whether or not it's going to be, I feel like we could dress up a studio to look quite authentic or quite like, I don't know, like relaxed. I don't know yet, but so that, again, that's something I need to look at doing, look at a bit of research into where I'm going to actually film it on college campus. It'll definitely be on college campus. Also, I need my microphones. I'll need my guests. Yeah. And then sound mixer, different things like that. And obviously cameras if I'm going to. I think for the camera setup, I think I'm gonna have it I'm gonna have it like I want to make like a main one. So you're gonna be like your 4 people or your 3-4 people. I want a main camera down the middle, and then also I want maybe one that can just catch like reactions and catch different people's like a close up a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of the whole concept and the kind of the whole thing is that it's going to be a football podcast. It's going to be on camera. The whole discussion and like the main meat of it's going to be things that are happening at the time. So Champions League finals, Champions League semi-finals, things like that. It's just going to be discussion about football topics. Maybe a bit I'm going to maybe try and get some controversial conversation in there, like maybe some like, I don't know, different discussion that's going to be like a bit viral. Like if you could clip it up and put it on something like TikTok. That's something I've looked at doing as well, is possibly maybe taking bits and snippets from the podcast and maybe creating a TikTok page, just because it helps with promotion, especially with my age demographic and the target audience is 16 to 23. They're quite big on social media. Any questions?
I have in just a sec. Right, target audience. How have you reached your conclusion as to who your target audience are? Because it feels very, very small.
Yeah.
So how have you reached that conclusion? What's the justification for it?
16 to 23, just purely because I think the people that are going to be on the podcast are going to be within that age demographic. We're all going to be quite young. The conversation will be a bit, I'd almost say if you're talking like people that are 30 plus, they're going to be talking about football and like potentially footballers from the past. Whereas we don't have that experience. The people that will be on the podcast might not watch like older players like Ronaldo and like the old school Ronaldo and like things like that. So it's sort of,
What research have you got to back that up?
to back what up. I have made a form that I need to actually get sent around to just see what people think. I want to have questions as well within the actual show. So like I might ask a question like, who's your favourite footballer or something, and then that'd get sent around and people would fill it in and that sort of thing.
Any other questions? Okay, well done. All those.
Well, I'm like,